Most of us have enjoyed the amazing beauty of a kaleidoscope at one time or another in our life. If you don't know what a kaleidoscope is, I'm going to give you a quick journey. It's a long cylinder, and at the bottom of the cylinder are little pieces of glass and tiny little colorful glass and pebbles. Above that are three little triangular pieces of mirror. They form together. And above that is the viewing glass. And when you gently turn the cylinder, the mirrors reflect and change the view of the pebbles and the little pieces of glass. Every single time you turn the cylinder, you are changing the image of what you are seeing. But they're the same pebbles and the same pieces of glass. It's how we choose to see them. Now, the physical act of doing this is really useful because it's really a metaphor in our own lives. Think about this just for a minute. Imagine if every single experience you had in your life was represented by one colorful piece of glass. And along with those experiences came the emotions. And every emotion also has a color to it. Perhaps in our cylinder, the pieces that are happy might be bright blue, and the darker emotions might be gray. But they're all there together, just waiting to be mixed. And you can see, these are just some images of what a kaleidoscope looks like. Now, with one shift in our consciousness, just a gentle shift, you can turn all those memories into a new image. So all of what you think about your past and your life and your experiences changes with one shift, just like the cylinder. And every time you shift again, you rearrange how those memories come together and the meaning they hold. We have a lifetime of memories stored in our consciousness, in that mind's eye. And what we choose to see has everything to do with which way we decide to focus. Our lives have all these beautiful pieces of glass, colorful, not so colorful. But all of them need light to shine upon them in order for them to create an image. And we give that light. We are the ones who bring light to everything that we raise in our consciousness. But this metaphor of the kaleidoscope shift reminds us to keep turning, to keep moving. If we don't like what we see, change it. Look again. Take another perspective. And one of the ways that I believe the kaleidoscope concept can help us in everyday life is think about the last time you were really stuck on something. Maybe you were writing an email, or maybe you were trying to create something, and you were just stuck. You couldn't come up with the answer. You knew there was an answer. You couldn't come up with it. And then you got up and you decided to walk away for a moment. And after you walked away, maybe you grabbed a cup of coffee, filled your water bottle, you come back, and it's clarity. There's the answer, right in your head, laying right before you. Why? Because you shifted your consciousness away from trying to do something you were forcing. So it works not only from a memory and subconscious perspective, but it works in our everyday life when we can't get ourselves unstuck. I call it the metaphorical brain freeze. You know? We're just stuck. We can't let it go. And in one moment, we're able to change it. Oprah Winfrey said this: "The smallest change in perspective can transform a life. What tiny attitude adjustment might turn your world around?" There's a great story about a woman named Twyla Tharp who really had to change her perspective in order to move forward. The story was written by Nancy Coveney, and it said this: "Couldn't she smile if only she were taller? They loved her kicking, but like thousands of other women, Twyla Tharp came to New York City with big dreams. The self-described Indiana farm girl enrolled at Barnard College to get a degree in art history, but her real passion, her real obsession was dance. To meet the college phys ed requirements, she studied dance with the legendary Martha Graham and Mercy Cunningham. Soon, she was fitting her schoolwork in between 2 or 3 dance classes a day. A dream was born. But dance is not exactly a surefire, lifelong profession. When she graduated in the mid-60s, she auditioned for commercials, tried out for roles, but she didn't seem to fit anywhere. She lacked the technical skills to be a ballerina. She discovered in a big audition she was too short for the Rockettes. They loved my kicking, but they said that I didn't have the right fit. She said, "But couldn't I please smile? Wasn't that enough?" She also learned she was too small in all ways to work as a Latin Quarter show girl. She still tried, but she kept wondering, will I ever be a dancer? Do I have any business at all trying to do this? The only way to find out, it seemed, was for her to form her own troupe and create her own style of dance. For 5 long years, Tharp and her troupe practiced virtually every day in the basement of a Greenwich Village church. Sometimes the janitors had to throw them out on Sunday morning. They worked for little pay and almost no recognition. Constantly, though, she said, "Do I want to do this? Do I?" 40 years later, after choreographing over 100 dances on Broadway and in movies like Hair and Ragtime, after winning the National Medal of the Arts in 2004, she still asks herself that question and says, yes, I am in the right business. See, she shifted her consciousness. Instead of playing by the rules everybody had set up for her, you have to be this high, you have to do this. Her passion, as soon as she stopped looking at what everyone else's perspective was, it changed. And the opportunity changed, and the image changed, and she was able to move on. But isn't that true of us? How many times we're stuck by the limits of our imagination and the limits of society and the rules for how we're supposed to live. Isn't that true? But this is where I see the greater purpose coming in. You see, Twyla was only focused on herself initially. But what she ended up doing had a much bigger impact than just on her. And that, to me, is where the greater value came. She became an instrument for good for more than herself. All those people she gave jobs to that were part of the dances she created. Opportunities for many people, not just her, but her instrument still remained there. She had to find another way to use it. But the kaleidoscope concept can also help us in thinking about the world. The world is a universal kaleidoscope. It's one big group of pieces of glass with a whole bunch of emotions and opinions. One big collection, and every individual represents one part of the history of our world. But God's divine light shines on us, and we all figure out how to come together and make things happen. That's the concept we have to start to think about. It's all related to this concept of the kaleidoscope. And you know, it was a client of mine, a really very special client of mine, who introduced me to this concept because he was using it to change people's minds in the workplace. And I became fascinated by thinking about, but couldn't this do more than that? It's a wonderful image from my perspective, and just helps me see things differently. But when we come together in our relationships and we think about the unique pieces and we don't like what we see, how about we just shift our consciousness a little instead of having everybody else shift theirs? Maybe we just do our part instead of asking the world to change according to us. Henry Ward Beecher said this: "Our days are a kaleidoscope. Every instant a change takes place in the contents. New harmonies, new contrasts, new combinations of every sort. Nothing ever happens twice alike. The most familiar people stand each moment in some new relation to each other, to their work, to surrounding objects. The most tranquil house with the most serene inhabitants, living upon the utmost regularity of system, is yet exemplifying infinite diversities." He was a clergyman in the 1800s, and he said that. Our takeaways for today. The kaleidoscope shift is a concept that reminds us to, number one, recognize the images of the mind's eye. What we see is often a reflection of our history. Number two, shift your consciousness and change what you see. One small adjustment can change the entire picture. Use reflection as an opportunity to gain insight. Investing time in reflection leads to improved understanding of ourselves. And number four, eliminate habitual and unproductive patterns of thought. Create new thoughts by having new images of yourself and of the world. Our affirmation today is: I shift my consciousness to improve my experiences. And our quote is from James Allen, and it says, "The world is your kaleidoscope, and the varying combinations of colors, which at every succeeding moment it presents to you, are the exquisitely adjusted pictures of your ever-moving thoughts." And I want to thank Jeffrey Beach and Mary. We started, I didn't get to thank you last week, but we started putting the takeaways in the bulletin. Thank you for your suggestion and your help. All right, can we just take a moment and let's just take this in. I want you to just pause for a moment and just reflect upon the images you've been holding. Think about this past week. What are some of the images you've been holding? And I want you to ask yourself if those images and memories are helping you. And of those images and memories, which ones might you consider shifting your consciousness on? What are the things that you can do in your mind to shift away from those darker spots, the repeated stories, the painful pieces, and find the brighter, little, colorful pieces that you can shine your light on as God shines light on you? We affirm God's good in us and for us. Amen.